Thank you very much for that very, very warm welcome. So, colleagues, honored guests, lots of words have been used to describe the subject of this session. Words like upheaval and crisis. I will use a different word: disruption. Disruption means change, yes, but it can also be a force for progress, opening up vast new opportunities. I want to challenge you today to see the disruption of this moment on the climate front as a monumental opportunity as much as a monumental heightened risk. The costs imposed by the climate crisis are, of course, already massive and growing fast. From unprecedented storms hitting Europe's west coast, and heat waves to droughts in Sicily, and floods across Central Europe, climate-driven disasters are slashing food production and destroying infrastructure, businesses, homes, and communities, driving up costs for households and businesses and driving down competitiveness. Climate impacts could carve up to 1% from the EU's combined GDP in coming years, something Europe can ill afford with its modest and fragile annual GDP growth. And the climate crisis could carve up to 2.3% off Europe's GDP by mid-century, a recipe for permanent recession, meaning continuously shrinking economies, failing businesses, and significantly increased unemployment. And these are very conservative estimates. They don't include the cascade of societal and ecological destruction, the food, water, and energy shortages we'd face if climate change is not contained. And the damage will not stop at Europe's borders, but it will increasingly impact them. As disasters make more and more regions unlivable and food production declines, millions more people will be forced to migrate internally and across borders. Unquestionably, the climate crisis is an urgent national security crisis that should be at the top of every cabinet room agenda. Surrender is not an option, and half measures are a recipe for failure. It is already at the top of most household agendas. 94% of Europeans support measures to build resilience and adapt to climate change. So governments have a very clear mandate for climate action. But let me turn now to the other side of the coin and the monumental opportunities that climate action presents for Europe. As one government steps back from climate leadership, it opens up space for others to step forward and seize the vast benefits on offer. And let's be clear, in a global clean energy boom that hit $2 trillion last year, the dividends on offer are truly monumental. The clean energy transition can be Europe's economic engine room now, when new sources of growth are vital to buttress living standards, and for decades to come. Investing in renewable energy, sustainable infrastructure, and green technologies is already creating millions of high-quality jobs and boosting Europe's competitiveness in the global market. The key to ensuring these benefits reach even more people is a strong new climate plan for Europe, known as nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. These plans are economic blueprints, signals to the market and consumers about where countries are going now and in the next decade. Done well, they are magnets pulling in huge inflows of capital investment, creating growth and buttressing living standards, especially as populations get older. When it comes to security guarantees of the economic kind, they don't come stronger for Europe than a bold new national climate plan this year. Major economies like the UK and Brazil have already delivered their NDCs because they know that strong plans will deliver huge human and economic benefits. There have been positive signals this month that some European decision makers also know how much they have to gain. Germany's 500 billion euro climate transformation fund, including 100 billion euros for climate action, is a clear example of how investments in climate, security, and economic stability go hand in hand. This new fund will open a new German express lane in the $2 trillion global clean energy race and help drive a jobs boom. Action cannot stop at Europe's borders. For example, re-energizing European industry will depend on securing access to critical raw materials and critical minerals. That relies on robust, rules-based international order, which in turn relies on Europe being seen as a strong, reliable, and strategic partner. Uniting nations and strengthening international cooperation. But that also means putting your money where your mouth is, continuing to fund climate action in other countries, especially those that need the help most. Because every economy relies on a stable climate and resilient supply chains that can withstand the climate shocks that are fueling inflationary pressures. You have the technology, you have the resources. What is needed now is leadership more than ever. This is Europe's moment, so I urge you to seize it. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stiell, for shedding the light on a topic that is currently, in my opinion, somewhat overshadowed by other major existential issues, but still it will be the major issue of the following years, the climate crisis. As populists are on the rise in Western societies, promising simple solutions to the migration crisis, but negating the importance of climate protection. Whom do you set your hope in, Mr. Stiell, right now? Is it Europe?
First of all, I set my hope in people and the resilience and our combined humanity. You speak of simple solutions and presenting the challenges that we face, certainly on the climate front and how those intersect with the geopolitics. And there's nothing simple about it, except the science, the clarity of science, and that science is complicated, but the clarity of the message in terms of what science is telling us, both about the impacts and the actions that we need to take to address them, that is not simple. And the complexity and the impacts that we are seeing day in, day out, community by community, country by country, region by region, globally, the impacts that they're having on the lives and livelihoods of ordinary people is far from simple. So to present that there are simple approaches and quick fixes are misrepresenting the realities. That narrative also misrepresents the benefits of climate action. Climate action in terms of whether it's in terms of livelihoods, job creation, the economy, health, the safety and security of people, those benefits. And I think those of us in the climate bubble have failed over this last political cycle to really get the simple messages across that climate action is actually good for business and it's good for ordinary people. And I think the more that that message is communicated, the unsimplification or the resimplification of what we need to be focusing is, but also the cost of inaction. And some of those populist narratives fail to price in the costs of climate impacts and the increasing costs. So when we speak here in Europe of 1% shaving on GDP, where you already have low single-digit growth numbers, that's significant. Where are the populists pricing that in? So there are no simple answers other than the need for climate action, strong climate action, which is for the benefit of all.
Talking about concrete actions, actually the European Union, you were talking about the importance of the national climate plans, which are really concrete actions, but actually the European Union failed to hand in the national climate plan of the EU for 2035 in February. We don't know when it will be submitted. What is your opinion on this?
So they've certainly missed a deadline, but that isn't failure. What is important is sufficient time is given and sufficient consideration given to the construct of that national climate plan, that NDC. So we are expecting it in the second half of this year. September is the absolute cutoff point where we need to receive from all countries so that we as a secretariat can aggregate, synthesize those to give the global picture, which will be the moment of our COP process this year. So timeliness is less important than the quality and the level of ambition that is presented in that NDC. So my hope is that the European Union will lean into that call for ambition and those concrete actions, which will not only keep Europe on track, but contribute to keeping the world on track to reducing emissions and ensuring that temperature rise doesn't exceed that magic number of 1.5 degrees Celsius.
Then let's talk about ambition. It's said that the European target for 2035 might be a range of 66 or 72%. What do you expect, and what would you consider the minimum of
it's not
a
my
reduction target?
It's not my role to anticipate and to respond to individual
you could
country
just tell
numbers.
us a wish. There are members of the German government listening, and this is your chance.
I will not call a number, but I will certainly say, the European Union knows what ambition looks like. They know what numbers speak to being Paris aligned and representing their share of their effort, this global effort to contain temperature rise and emissions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stiell. We like to hear that. Europe has ambitions, and we hope it will stick to that. Now I give back to my colleague Rainer. Thank you so much for having you
Thank you.
And now we're looking forward to the next panel.